MedFisher presents to you a series of talks with our medical interpreters who are working as the outsider from the world of medicine. In this fourth ode, we interviewed the founder of Green Terp, Bernard Song, who shared his insight on the future of the interpretation world. This is The Outsider.
Hi, Bernard. Welcome to MedFisher Med Talk. This is a series for medical interpreter, but we still have you because you're the founder of Green Terp. And so we also would like to hear some technologies progress in the interpretation market. Could you please briefly introduce yourself?
My name is Dr. Bernard Song, and I'm a conference interpreter. I'm also a computer scientist. I used to be a computer scientist. I left the career as a computer scientist 6 years ago. So I've been a conference interpreter for 20 years. A parallel profession to my computer scientist profession. And I find these two are very interesting. They have something in common, but they also are vastly different from each other. I'm very glad during the pandemic, I find an opportunity to combine these two hobbies or passions of mine together and created Green Terp that is able to benefit the wider community of interpreters and language service providers, as well as the clients.
I know now you're in Singapore, right? You have settled down in Singapore for like 20 years, something like that, right? So could you please talk about the difference of interpretation market in China and Singapore?
Sure. I've been in Singapore since 2002. That's almost like exactly 20 years. I came to Singapore as a postgraduate student to have my PhD studies here. I graduated from Tianjin University back in China for my college. I never imagined that I started this career as a conference interpreter back then because it was just a hobby for me as a second major English student participating in the English public speaking contest. So when I came to Singapore, it's early 2000. And it's definitely less developed than China in terms of conference interpreting, the training of the professionals, the needs for professional interpreters. Back in the year 2000, 2002, I think there are less number of freelancer interpreters in China. So I have to make a decision. So I didn't hesitate. I left the job as a computer scientist to pursue the profession full time as a conference interpreter. That was around 10 years ago.
What other differences make Green Terp stand out?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I'm glad that you asked this question. A lot of colleagues as well as clients are pretty confused about the many tools in the market. Yeah. Let me clarify the differences. The first difference is between machine interpretation and human interpretation. We are interpreters. We are the human interpreters working behind the tools to present interpretation to our clients, to the audience. And iFlyTech, 科大讯飞, is a company that provides artificial intelligence translation or interpretation. To a certain extent, that would satisfy some people's needs. The people who have good command of both languages, but they are constantly struggling with certain accents, for example, or certain words that are difficult for them to catch. For our tool, it's different that we are not a platform. We don't have the meeting functionality there, like what we're having in Zoom. And Green Terp only provides you a console, which we call the virtual booth tool. And in that console, you're able to perform whatever you were performing prior to COVID back in a physical booth, right? You have the incoming channels, you have the outgoing channels, and you can see your booth partners and hear your booth partners there so that you can collaborate with each other.
Oh, so we can also hear our partner.
Yes.
And the virtual booth. Wow, that's cool.
So it's a virtual together, right? Virtually together. You are working with your booth partner is just not in the same space and but in the same time.
And also, just to make a quick summary, just now when you're talking about the features of Green Terp, so it's more like a virtual booth, right? So I can also hear my partner. So that's something really solve my pain points because Because I feel like, for example, like Zoom, like
Mm-hmm.
other like Teams, so they
Mm.
also have a simultaneous interpretation tool or embedded tools. But I feel like sometimes I have to give a call to my partner to say, okay, now it's your time, right? To remind him like I need to switch, right?
Yeah.
And also just now you mentioned that, for example, we can just use the link to hear the translation rather than go to another platform, right? I think that's solve a lot of problem for the clients also, right?
Yeah.
Could you please help predict? So what gonna
Sure.
happen maybe in
Sure.
like 5 year long or 10 year long in the
Yeah.
interpretation market or conference market? Okay.
Yeah. One key point that I would like to highlight is that we are already into the future, 2 years into the pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, I think all of us have this panic feelings, where we're in the panic mode. What happens? What if there is no meetings anymore, right? We're gonna lose our job, lose our living. But things move along, and interpreters adapt pretty well. We learn to use tools like Zoom and other RSI platforms, but that's not the end. All right, a lot of people think, "Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay with all the platforms. I'm working on that." That's just a start. That's just the start. The future is coming from 2022. And so we foresee the future is as a hybrid simultaneous interpreting world. This is a word that I coined, HSI, hybrid simultaneous interpreting. And
Okay.
what is that? It's not RSI anymore.
Okay.
Okay, and it's different from hybrid meetings that we talked about, where audience are on site, audience online, audience are speakers are on site and online. We as interpreters, we are in the hybrid mode. Okay? To give you an illustration, in the future conferences, if you need 5 booths, in the past you can only have 1 or 2 booths in China, for example, because we are lack of the talents of other languages. And so through this hybrid mode, you have interpreters in 1 booth on site, you have interpreters
Okay.
joining you from Indonesia remotely, and you have another booth with just one interpreter in there. The other interpreter is working from Xi'an, not in Shanghai. But you two are like the one outside in Shanghai, the one in Xi'an back in her home can work together. And you also have 2 other interpreters working from a remote hub, an office. They're together. And then you can have 2 other interpreters working from Japan separately from their home. And this is just one conference with, I don't know, 6 or 7 booths and with full relay. This is going to be the future of hybrid simultaneous.
So previously out due to the resource lackage, so maybe they're gonna prefer have a local interpreter. Now they can have the interpreters around the world, and then we have to compete more furiously to be a good interpreter to satisfy the customer needs because we are competing with the world, a world of interpreters. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so you touched something very, very close to my heart. I mean, part of the reason I started Green Terp is that I don't really like the idea of, DD drivers or Uber drivers because we're in a highly professional or highly skilled position. So I wanted to start Green Terp to protect our profession as well, to give the tool to each one of the interpreters. If you go along a path of a remote simultaneous interpreting platforms, most of them, if not all, are doing the interpreter hiring business. So, that's the intuitive part. Like, as clients, they would say, oh, you're providing the platform, why don't you provide the interpreters? And secondly, like you said, it becomes DD. The interpreters will have to bag jobs from those RSI platforms. And you're in competition with your colleague from Africa, for example. And the living standards are different between China or Japan with Africa, apparently. And so they can offer a much lower rate, but not necessarily a much lower quality. What I see beneficial to a healthy interpreting market development is a fair competition. Okay, we don't want to be the Uber drivers or DD drivers. So we want a fair competition. Instead of letting the power be concentrated in the RSI platform's hands, each one of you can have your own tool, like a virtual booth tool. And to use it to offer it to your client. Now, the RSI platforms can also say that, but it's very difficult. Your role has already changed since 2020. you have to be your own technician when you're working on
So I'm the PM, right?
Yeah,
so
you are the PM and everything. You're forced to change.
Bernard, maybe you can choose from the 6 box. Choose one number from the 6 boxes.
Sure. I'll choose number 3.
Okay, cool. Let's play the video. Number 3.
And CRISPR is
CRISPR
a technology
是一个技术
that
啊，
we
它
harness from bacterial
是
cells
让我们
to
从
be able to
这个
make
细
those
菌的
precise
细胞之中
changes
提
in
取
the human genome.
去在
And,
人类的基因
and the
中
way it
做
works
出
is,
准确的
imagine
改变
if you are。
那它
writing
工
a
作的方
novel
式呢，就是
and
说，
you
想
are
象一下你
proofreading
在写
the novel
一本
and
小
there
说
are some，
然后在
typos
校对的
you
时候，
want
你发现
fix.
有一
And
些
let's say the sentence in the
笔误
novel said,
然后呢，
twinkle,
比如说有一
twinkle,
句
big
话
star.，
叫做一闪一闪大星星，你要把它修改成小星星。那么这里有不同的方式来修改它。你可以呢把这个大字去掉，变成一闪一闪星星，但是这没办法去捕捉这句话完整的意思。另外一种方式呢，就是要把这个小字插进去，就变成一闪一闪大小星星。这个听起来还是有点令人疑惑，是吧？所以我们要做的就是要记进去，然后呢把这个大字换成小字。所以其中一个方式呢，就是你用这个 RNA 的工具进去解码这个一闪闪大星星，然后呢去搜索一个字串这个大字，然后用了 Cas2 这个模板这个工具把这个大字的模板去掉。然后再提供给这个细胞一个替代的模板，这个模板就是小字，然后这个细胞就可以把这样的一个 DNA 的损坏呢把它修复。谢谢。
So now I think we can close our interview for today. So it's really eye-opening experience for me.
Thank you, Nora, for the invitation. And I look forward to have, more collaborations, more talks with you guys so that we can know, deeper about what MedFisher can offer to the wider world, not just in China. You guys can go to the world.